Hello everybody and welcome to Gamers Without Borders. We probably look a bit different today because we are streaming this live. And it is Saturday, September 24th, 2011 according to my timestamp on Notepad. And we're going to be trying a different format today. Today I'm joined by Ozzie Arcane and Chris the Nerd. And we're going to be talking about a specific game instead of general gaming news. And today we're going to be talking about Borderlands. We would normally call this Gamers Without Borderlands, but we have Borderlands, so that wouldn't really make much sense now, would it?
Guess not.
Call it Gamers Without Duke Nukem.
Yeah, we don't have Duke Nukem. So, as it stands, Borderlands 2 is set to be coming out in 2012. Which is a good thing. I'm excited for it. But for those of us who don't know, let's just say what Borderlands is like.
I guess the best way to describe Borderlands, if you want to get really simple, is just a first-person shooter that's driven by loot.
It's like first-person shooter Diablo.
Yeah, it's Diablo with guns. As they described it in the ads, the FPS and RPG had a baby. The role-playing shooter.
I thought that baby was Fallout.
Well, that's also around. I really liked Fallout 3, but Borderlands is a lot more... It's a lot faster. Fallout 3 is definitely a more methodical kind of game. Borderlands is a lot more fast-paced, a lot more frantic, and you just kill people, take their loot, and you sort it out later. With Fallout, you really kind of have to think about what you're going to be picking up.
Borderlands kind of has to be that way, though, because of the fact that it's also a multiplayer game.
Yes, it is. Borderlands, the great part about Borderlands is the multiplayer. If you haven't seen our Let's Play of it, which we will be doing the next installment for very soon, Borderlands is a very social kind of game. If you can play with other people, it's a very fun experience.
Unless those people are boring, which was my case.
I like playing Borderlands multiplayer, but a lot of people say you can't really play it single player, but I've had a decent time playing it.
I played all the way through it single player, and I played through it multiplayer. I played through it with my friend. We played through it split screen. He would come over like maybe twice a week, and we would get a couple like 8-hour sessions in. And that's one of the benefits of both of you being unemployed. There's very few benefits to that, but
at least you found one.
yes, but we played through the entire thing from start to finish, including the DLC, and we had fun the entire time. So if you're looking for a good deal, Borderlands is definitely the way to go, especially if you can get a multi-pack, play it with some friends. It should be fairly cheap on Steam, and or if you can find it used.
I believe a used copy. I know it's like $30 for like the Game of the Year edition on Steam. Just looking up how much it is for a hard copy right now. Just give me a second, and I will find that.
It should be about comparable to that. I mean, depending on where you get it. I know GameStop tends to kind of increase their prices.
GameStop, you can get it on Xbox 360 used for $20.
And that's not the Game of the Year edition, though, is it?
Nope, Game of the Year is $35.
Right. Which it's about then that ends up to about be a $5 for 3 DLCs. But there's 4 DLCs in the package, so you save $5 for buying it that way.
I'm assuming the physical Game of the Year edition must have the DLC on the disc, because
actually no, the Game of the Year edition of Borderlands, I actually have that. I got that for Christmas. The Game of the Year edition of Borderlands it's just the game on the disc, and it comes with codes to download the DLC.
So basically, GameStop is charging more for the Game of the Year edition when it's the same game because you can't use the vouchers because they've already been used.
That's a possibility. I don't know.
You can still use the vouchers because they give you valid vouchers for the DLC.
They do?
Yes.
Are you certain?
Used copy of the game?
Yeah, because you're buying the Game of the Year edition.
Yeah, but if you're buying it used,
they have to. They have to give you the vouchers.
Not if they don't have any.
We should definitely look that up. That seems that it would be bad. I mean, I'd imagine they wouldn't do that because that seems definitely illegal.
Yeah, that's fraudulent. They can't do that.
Well,
they would get in a shitload of trouble if they did that.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, they sell Dragon Age Origins used when you can't use the vouchers that came with that new, because unless they weren't used, and that basically makes Dragon Age Origins used cost more than it would have cost new. If you decide you want to pay for the DLC that was supposed to come with it.
See, I don't think they can do that though. That sounds like amazingly fraudulent.
Well, this is the same company that deliberately took out coupons for OnLive because it would eat into their sales.
Well, yeah, they shouldn't have done it. It was stupid that they leaked that. But
because I don't see how they could do it, because my point is, the company that made Borderlands is not going to give them extra vouchers to put in with their used copy of the game that they're not getting any money from.
True.
There's no way for them to get the vouchers unless they took them out of another copy of the game.
Let's see.
This is definitely something worth looking up.
Just looking at the information, the product details here. I don't know if it would say it on their website.
We're kind of getting off track, though.
A little bit, but this is definitely something worth looking into. If anybody has bought a Game of the Year edition from Borderlands or any similar game like that comes with vouchers for the DLC instead of the actual DLC on disc, leave a message, let us know. We're very curious about how this actually works.
Or you could just get a new copy for $40.
Yeah, which is about comparable. I mean, you could probably even find a new copy cheaper if you don't buy it from GameStop.
Probably.
And we got our copies of the Game of the Year edition on Steam for like $7 during their sale.
I had to pay $30 though because I didn't get it during the sale. But still, that's cheaper than GameStop wants for a used copy of the game.
Yeah, if you are getting the game, definitely look into getting the Game of the Year edition, because at this point, the Game of the Year edition is about as much more than the regular game as getting a single DLC. So if any of the DLC interests you, just get the Game of the Year edition.
Well, yeah, and not only that, if you look on Steam, the Game of the Year edition costs the same price as the pack that contains all the DLC. So you're basically paying the DLC price and getting the game for free.
Yeah. Or if you look at it a different way, it's depending on certain price differences, or if there's a sale, the price of the Game of the Year edition is the same as getting the regular game and one DLC.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just got to make sure you check around.
Right.
So moving forward from there, let's go into what we liked or disliked about the game. Ozzie, why don't you go first, since you seem to have something to say about this.
The person who disliked it the most out of all of us, you go with me first.
Of course.
Well, I mean, there were things I liked about it. I haven't played as Brick much, but I kind of love the fact that he kind of reminds me of like a Heavy from Team Fortress 2 on steroids. Especially when you use his Berserk mode and just punch the shit out of everything in sight. That's always fun, especially just hearing him ramble nonsense as he's beating things senseless. But my main issues with it was, I don't know if it was the people I was playing with or what. When I played through it originally, I got very bored with it. I don't know, maybe it was the class I was using, but to me, it kind of a lot of the stuff you had to do in it kind of reminded me of the quests you would do in an MMO, except the scenery is all very boring. It's lots of brown and desert and mountains for most part, except for when you're in like a base or something.
Well, I think the colors were a lot more vibrant than a lot of other games out there. Like if you look at the Call of Duty series, at least it's
probably Gears of War. You compare Borderlands to Gears of War. There's a lot more color to the characters.
Oh yeah, and not even that. Just like the barrels you see, you actually have different colored barrels, and those create different kinds of lens flares instead of everything just being gunmetal gray, brown, and blood. You actually have like blue and orange and bursts and everything, and it all looks very pretty.
In Gears of War 2 defense, though, they appear to have added some blue spots.
The barrels have to be different colors, so you know what they do when you blow them up.
Exactly.
Well, that adds more color.
Yeah.
Point.
But I mean, it's just that, except for when you're actually at your destination, all the scenery looks very samey.
I can agree with that to an extent.
Well, this is kind of a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It is. There is a lot of sand. You get used to seeing dirt a lot.
But I mean, we'll see if I enjoy it more playing with you guys when I join in on the Let's Play than I did when I played it before.
One thing I kind of like the scenery. I like the overall look of the game. It had this really neat cel shaded kind of like fake drawn kind of look, kind of like the Okami games, but not quite as stylized as that. I like the kind of variations in the enemies, although there really aren't too many types of enemies in the game. They just kind of level up as you do.
Mm.
And after a while, skags disappear.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. I kind of like the skags.
Bad mother brute.
Yeah, I like that they called the bosses badasses. That was a neat touch on their part. But I love the fact that all the items you find are randomly generated, because it adds kind of a lot of replay value to the thing, because you might get better types of weapons at a certain point. But kind of like the folly of a lot of other types of games of this variety, you tend to pick up a lot of stuff that doesn't even matter. It's like
you want to sell it for money.
Exactly, because not even that, you find items, but they're not as good as the ones you have. So you change your weapon maybe 12 times throughout the entire game.
Yeah, because you'll often find something that just seems to be like far better than what you should have found at the point that you're at. And then, like, you go so long before you actually find something that you actually consider better that you bother to equip.
Yeah, and not only that, you just grow attached to certain weapons. Like, you just learn the nuances of your particular gun. You know it's this number of shots before you have to reload, or you know that you could take this guy out with X number of shots, or you know exactly how far you have to recalibrate your aim every time you shoot.
Yeah, when I played, I had an acid revolver I was in love with. I will melt your face.
I have a weapon like that. It's one of the legendary weapons, so it's got the orange text.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
It's an SMG. It does like 80 damage, and it has ×4 fire damage. So, and it's got like a 50 shot clip, so needless to say, I fell in love with it immediately.
What I would have loved about a game like this would if the map was actually randomly generated.
That would have made it more interesting.
That would have been fucking amazing, because that's one of my favorite parts of Diablo 2. I don't know if they did it with Diablo 3. I think they might have said some news about it, but I really hope Diablo 3 is randomly generated.
Yeah, but depending on the graphics, they might not be able to do that.
Torchlight had a very similar kind of look, and Torchlight is all randomly generated. And I think the amount of care and meticulous planning that goes into making a level like this, I'm a level designer myself. I've made my own levels, and you look at a game like Borderlands or Fallout 3, and you just take a look around, or Grand Theft Auto. You just take a look around and realize everything you see was placed there by a person for some reason. They decided that there should be a barrel here, there should be a treasure chest here, there should be a rock here. And the amount of care and meticulous planning that goes into this, that people don't even seem to notice as they're playing through the game. They don't notice that there happens to be a piece of wood sticking out across this window here. And I know a lot of times they use like algorithms to generate these buildings from a set from a set like number of basic walls. But I think that if you could, it would not be too much more effort to, instead of meticulously designing all your levels, you create a good algorithm that could randomly generate them on their own.
Yeah.
And you could, and then you could just put your effort into making various different chunks, and then the chunks are randomly kind of placed together in a way that makes sense. And that adds an immense amount of replay value to this game, because nobody who plays the same game is going to get the same experience.
Right.
From playing
and that's what
it.
You'd want to sell it on.
Or even that, you could just play the game multiple times. I mean, after you play through Borderlands once, you kind of had your fix of it. Unless you kind of want to play through it again. I want to play through it again, because even though I've already played through it twice, because it's just that much fun of a game. But if it were randomly generated, I would be playing it multiple times probably, just to experience what's going to happen the next time I play.
Yeah.
The same way I did with Diablo, because you play through Diablo and you just get such a random layout. Sometimes the stairs to the next level will be right next to the stairs you just came down.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great if they could, if Borderlands 2 had some form of more random. I guess random's not really the right word, but
well, even so much as the types of enemies you face in Borderlands, they all spawn in the exact same place. I mean, right at the start, when you leave Firestone, you on the left you got the Skags, on the right you have that passageway with the three bandits that always come out there and start sniping at you when you try to go to TK Baja. And it's like, yep. God damn it, leave us alone.
I've killed you. I've killed the same group of the three of you 20 times now.
Yeah.
Learn.
Another thing I didn't like about Borderlands is the interface. The interface in the console version actually works very well. I'm not as crazy about it on the PC version. Mm-hmm. But one thing I don't like is it's kind of tough to tell at a glance how strong your weapon is compared to one that you're already equipping.
Yeah, because you got to compare the fire rate.
You have to compare the fire rate, accuracy, how much the clip it holds, and not only that, it depends on what you actually want. Or it tells you that it goes up, but it doesn't tell you how much it's gone up more than your current one. Because if the accuracy has gone up, but it's only gone up by like 0.1, then that's really not worth trading in like 20 points of damage, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would like to see an easier way to compare weapons to each other. At the same time, I have never run into a time when you have needed to pick up the weapon and immediately equip it. I do not like that feature. Like, you hold down the button you hold down the pickup button too long, and you end up replacing your gun with whatever was on the ground.
Yeah, the only thing I like about that feature is when you just pick up all the ammo and money at the same time.
That is another problem with it, because that is the exact same hotkey to like pick up all the ammo and money in front of you at once. Because sometimes if you tend to be aiming over a weapon when you try to do that, you'll end up replacing the weapon instead of picking up the items and instead of picking up the ammo and money, which that's not good. I would like a feature to turn that off, or at least put them as two different hotkeys.
Yeah.
I agree. Or I'd rather, if you want to keep the hotkey for that, you want to keep, because some people might use it, you don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe switch it to where holding the X button, like I'm talking about 360 interface because that's what I played on. If you hold the X button, that'll collect all the ammo and money that you need. But you hold the Y button, maybe that could switch weapons, because Y is already used to switch weapons, just holding it down. Because right now, if you hold the Y button, it just brings up the 4 guns you have, and you can use the directional pad, when you could just use the directional pad.
Right. That seems a bit redundant. That same kind of feature is on the PC version, you hold down the use button to pick up everything in front of you. It's the same. It's the same. I think it's the E button or Q button. It's one of the things next. It's one of the things next to the WSD.
Yeah, I think it'd be better if they just.
If they just gave us the option to turn it on or off. Yeah.
Give the option to turn it off, or if you don't want to do that, just make it a different button.
Because I've never even it works if you want it to work. I mean, if you wanted it to do it that way, then you could use that as your option. But I've never even run into a situation where I needed to switch weapons that quickly. Because I've always been, like, if I'm playing in one player, I can just pick up the item and pause the game, and then equip it from my inventory. And I don't lose any time. I mean, there's never going to be a situation where I am so hard up. It's like, I need to have this weapon. It deals 5 extra damage. I need to have this weapon right now. I can't wait like 3 seconds while I equip it in my inventory or something because my friend's going to die. No, I have my weapon. I have my weapon that'll work just fine. This is just slightly better. I can equip that after the battle. I can pick it up now, keep it in my inventory, and equip it later. I don't need to switch to it immediately. Yeah. I don't see why they saw that this was such a necessary thing. I mean, maybe if... I know in Diablo, if you're working quickly and your weapon breaks, you're kind of stuck without a weapon, kind of running from enemies. So you will try and pick up the nearest thing, and they'll immediately equip it to your weapon, as your weapon. But I've never encountered anything like that in Borderlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your weapons don't break.
Right. The only thing that'll happen is it'll run out of ammo.
Yeah, but in Borderlands 2 they have this new feature where if your gun runs out of ammo in the clip, you can actually throw it like a grenade. And then a new weapon will just appear. It'll spawn with nanotech. Because science!
Science! Well, I think that's probably a good segue to Borderlands 2.
Well, we wanted to get into our anecdotes, didn't we? We wanted to talk about our stories.
Shit. Then I take that back. Instead, that is a good segue to talking about anecdotes of Borderlands 1.
I got a couple interesting stories involving Borderlands 1. Of course, you both saw the clip I showed you where the game glitched and Brick was piloting the vehicle with his feet because he was standing up in the vehicle.
Oh yes, I find that amusing.
I played through as the hunter. I know, like, I think I was playing with one of my friends at their house one time, and we just kind of stumbled upon this by accident. But I just happened, for whatever reason, decide to use the sniper scope to zoom in on like Lilith's chest.
My friend kept doing that. Every time I was like at the Renew You station or whatever, or like saving or setting up my accounts, he would like zoom in his revolver on Lilith's ass, and it was funny because it said use. Because he was standing next to the Renew You station, and the use button would pop up, zooming in on Lilith's ass.
But needless to say, my friends got amusement out of it.
That is amusing.
I think the funniest thing that ever happened to me was when we were fighting Skagzilla, my friend who was using Brick. Skagzilla did one of his attacks where, you know, he leaps into the air, and my friend activated Berserk and started punching him while he was in midair. All of a sudden, Skagzilla couldn't get back on the ground because he was being bounced around in the air by a Berserker punching the crap out of him.
Nice.
I don't have any really, like, humorous stories, like, that I can think of off the top of my head, other than, like, the occasional glitch where you'll,
Yeah, Borderlands is... Well, it's kind of par for the course for a lot of modern games, because they have so many features, it's impossible to test everything in them. I mean, glitches are nothing new. I mean, glitches have been around for years, so they just start looking more goofy in modern games, because there's so much more that can go wrong.
Goofy glitches, I've had a couple of goofy ones where I caught, one of those endless, like, spawns. One of them was like a house that they kept coming out. It was like a little tent, in one of the areas, and I was just standing next there, and I had like a really good shotgun.
So you're just standing next to it and just kept killing them as they're coming out. It's the clown car of death.
Yeah, it was the clown tent. That's what it was. It was like a tiny little tent in the desert, and they just kept popping out of it, and I was there with my shotgun that had regenerating ammo.
Nice.
Just popping them off by one. And I was like, I'm gonna have to stop this eventually.
It's good. It's good experience.
It was good experience.
Oh, were they coming out fast enough for you to get the challenge? Of kill like 12 people in the span of without 7 seconds.
It's 25, yeah. They would come out like 10, and then there'd be a pause.
Oh.
And then like 10 more would come. It was ridiculous. But no, and it was 25 to get the thing, and I got 24.
Ah.
Yeah, it pissed me off. But yeah, it's mine.
Other anecdotes from other than the use Lilith's ass. But he kept doing that. It's just he just kept doing that every time I was at the Renew U station, and we played through the entire game, so we ended up doing it to be like 20 times. I'm like, damn it, stop it!
I'm trying to renew myself.
Also, when I was playing with Lilith, I was always pick the pink runner because it's pink. And
it's pink.
And it's just, but it had a legitimate effect in game because I was able to see it against the like brown background of everything. I was able to easily pick out my pink runner sitting outside. It's like, where is it? Oh, there it is. Because it doesn't appear on your auto map or anything. You have to actually look around for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the hot electric pink runner with the machine gun. You'll see that fairly easily. Come on, catch a ride on the rating.
Let's see. I always, whenever I picked a runner, I would just grab one and just make it quick. Teleport to driver's seat. Let's go.
Yeah, we ended up doing that.
A scooter with loop over himself.
A great thing like that is you take one runner and you drive it out to one location, and then if you're playing multiplayer, you take another runner and drive it out to another location, and then you can actually use them as waypoints. Like if you have to warp back between like the town and the vending machine and where you're killing enemies, you can just park a runner in front of the vending machines and use your other one, and then you can just teleport back and forth.
There you go.
Which I guess can lead us into our discussion of what we want to see in Borderlands 2. I want to see portals. In Diablo, they had like the Tome of Town portal. Why not have that in Borderlands? You can actually like drop an actual portal on the ground and step into it, takes you back to the nearest like vending machine or wherever you drop the second portal.
Yeah, and they can just go, "Hey Valve, we're borrowing this."
Yeah, you let your friends use it, or you could just drop down 2 little portal things. Like, hey.
And you don't even have to call it a portal, so that way Valve won't be like.
The portal isn't copyrighted. It's like having the term.
I know.
It's like trying to copyright the term avatar.
Right, but here's the thing. People will be a little bit less stupid about it. Like, they're stealing portals from Valve. I'm boycotting this game. Sign a petition to get rid of the Valve portals from Borderlands 2. And then they'll get like 1,000 signatures.
I would argue with you, but that seems kind of plausible. Because people are fucking stupid.
Yeah. When you get people who are willing to petition Diablo 3 because of the art design.
Because of the farting unicorns and shit.
Yeah. This doesn't look like Diablo. No, people are stupid when it comes to games. Like Ozzie showed me this one guy who was like contemplating suicide when Final Fantasy 13 went multi-platform.
Oh, come on.
I don't know what I'm feeling. The loyalty that I've showed Final Fantasy has been betrayed. I just want to cry.
Yeah, pretty much. He's not kidding. I don't know what to feel right now. I feel definitely anger.
Betrayal!
It's betrayal! Betrayal! Betrayed me! It has nothing to do with XCOM.
Nothing! Nothing!
And there's Joe just looking up in the distance like,
What?
what is this guy doing? Getting a little off track, but anyway.
Well, I kind of agree with. I'm going over to, if we can get off track for a bit. I kind of agree with him because I've seen XCOM. I haven't played it because it's kind of hard to run those games on modern computers. But I've seen it and it looks really interesting. It looks like the original XCOM games where you're having to train your troops and figure out what you're going to research and everything, and then the actual isometric based combat. I love tactics games like that, but I would just love a game like that plays on modern systems, has modern graphics and everything, and just works just better. But then they turn it into a standard first-person shooter. It's like, yeah, I can understand being betrayed by that.
Let me tell you exactly what I couldn't tell him because he doesn't know who I am. The reason I can tell you exactly the reason why they made it a first-person shooter is because it will sell.
It won't. First-person shooters are a dime a dozen. Every fucking game is a first-person shooter.
Right. Obviously, TZ, to intellectuals like us, yes, first-person shooters are a dime a dozen. But to the average consumer, the person who's gonna buy a video game, the kid, you know, the teenager who's gonna go into a store, they don't know about a dime a dozen. They don't care. They just want to shoot something, and oh look, aliens. I want to shoot aliens. That's why it will sell.
Especially the console version, because if you gotta think, if I'm sure it's gonna be released on consoles.
It would have to be. Yeah.
If it was a strategy game, it wouldn't work well on consoles.
Exactly. They want it to be for a wider audience.
But XCOM is a turn-based strategy game.
Right.
Turn-based strategy games work fine on consoles. Final Fantasy Tactics came out on the PS1 and the PSP.
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The point is they're making it for a wider audience. I agree. I totally agree with you. Like, I think they should make a tactical game like the original XCOMs. However, they want to make something that'll sell.
Then why fucking call it just XCOM? This is something that's been pissing me off for a long time. Not just in video games, but also in movies. Give it a fucking subtitle. Something. The new Prince of Persia game. I've just been calling it Prince of Persia: The Claw of Ahriman. They could have called it that, and then it would have made itself different than the Prince. Are you talking about Prince of Persia: The Sounds of Time? Are you talking about the original Prince of Persia? No, you're talking about the new Prince of Persia that came out that you can't die in. Or you have XCOM. It's like, oh, I love XCOM. It's like, dude, you fucking like first-person shooters? Fuck you. No, not that XCOM. The original XCOM. XCOM. Terror from the Deep and stuff like that. Call it something. And even especially if it's a completely different direction of the series, you definitely want to give it a subtitle. It's like what they did with Halo Wars. It's a completely different direction from the regular game. They didn't just call it Halo 5 or whatever the hell they were going to call it. They didn't call it Halo 4 at that point. Halo 3 was already out, so they didn't call it Halo 4. They just called it something completely else, different. They called it Halo Wars. Called it XCOM Origins, since it's supposed to be like the original game, like when XCOM was first starting out. Call it XCOM Origins.
Right. Like, I agree with that. Like, I hate that things do that, but I'm not as negative about the game being made in the first place. Like, I'm not as upset about it being a first-person shooter because I believe that any franchise can go in a different direction. I think it's good that they do something different.
Yeah,
I don't mind that. Like, hold on. Like, I don't mind that they do something different. Like, I'm not as like crazy upset as fans of the franchise are. Like, it would be great. You know, it would be really good if what they should do is, whether it be a pre-order bonus or something that they just do as DLC, just put the original games out on Xbox Live.
I would definitely get that if it came with that, because I've been wanting to play the XCOM. It's been in my Steam wish list for a while.
That's something I think they should do, so that way they get the fans who are crazy upset about the shooter bit. There you go, you have it. Here's the original game, Xbox Live Arcade for $10, or whatever.
Or you just comes with a voucher for the
Xbox. It comes with a voucher for a pre-order bonus. Here you go. Here's the original game.
And hell, I mean,
Or maybe it's like a collector's edition of the game. That way you get more people. You get people to spend more money on the game, invest in that. So now they have money to work on a sequel, and maybe they can go back to the roots and do a strategy game for the sequel.
I mean, yeah, I'm not one of those people that also complained about like Fallout 3 when it went first person, because we had tons of people complained about that, and Fallout as well started out the exact same isometric view as XCOM, and then people complained about it, but then they played it and it's like, oh my god, this game is fucking awesome. Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games for the Xbox 360. I don't own that many games for it, but Fallout 3 is definitely one that I keep coming back to. Even when I just wanted to play it for a little bit, I ended up dropping another 100 hours into the damn thing.
Yeah, and that was actually when that Spoonie's betrayal bit first came out. That was what I said immediately. That was the first thing I said when he was griping about, it's not XCOM! I was like, well, you know, I don't know if he was, but I know there were a ton of people when Fallout 3 was announced and like, oh god, it's first-person shooter, oh no! You know, I'm not buying this game, and it's one of the best games in the 360 library.
Although, if you have to look at it, because Fallout 3, it was presented as a first-person shooter, but it was still a very methodical kind of game, like the original Fallout. I don't see that same thing happening with XCOM. I see it being a much more action-oriented, less. They say that there's strategies in the games, but from what I've seen in the trailers, I don't know.
About the fans of the original XCOM, like I understand being upset that it's not what you wanted. I get that. I totally get that. But then to continue to bitch and moan when they try to do something, like they completely reworked a bunch of stuff for XCOM. When they first announced it, it was just a straight up first-person shooter. And then, you know, the fans came in like, oh, it's not XCOM. And then they're like, alright. So then they completely retool it. They try to add some strategy elements while still keeping it a first-person shooter. And the fans, this isn't good enough. It's like, well, you know what, screw you then. Don't buy it. Because I would get so pissed off. Because, you know, I'm going into game design. To know that I worked my ass off for 3 years just to hear some fans go, and then you're like, alright, I understand. Like, I understand your fans, so we're going to try and work it as best we can to put in some strategy stuff. And they still come out and go, this isn't good enough. Wipe my behind or else. I'll boycott your game. You know what? At that point, screw you.
The same thing happens with the Sonic the Hedgehog fans. They're like, just give us a classic side-scrolling Sonic the Hedgehog, and then they do. They gave us Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1, and they're like, no, we don't like that.
This isn't good enough. It's like, that nothing pisses me off more.
Well, Ozzie is leaving us for now. I suppose Chris and I can keep going for a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. But yeah, that irritates me to end.
Yeah, there is no pleasing fans. I mean, I've released games as well. I've released my own games, and one of the first complaints I got from people was, this game sucks, you can't run. And I'm like, read the instructions. It tells you press shift to run. And I was like, where are the fucking instructions? There are no fucking instructions. And the file that you download to play the game, it has the
readme.txt.
There's two files in the fucking zip. There's the gameinstaller.exe and readme.txt. There's two fucking files in there, and you can't find it.
No, you can't. I understand you can't please anybody, and that's why when it would come to that, where I made a first-person shooter and people were like, well, like if they calmly said, well, it'd be nice if there were some more like strategy elements like the original XCOMs. I understand that. I'm like, okay, we'll try and add like maybe squad tactics, like exactly what they did. They added the pause wheel a la Mass Effect, which works out fine. you know, it's like Mass Effect. You hold I think it's like the right bumper, and that brings up like different squad abilities or something like that, something to that effect. Or like a good example is do what Brothers in Arms does, where you hold down the left trigger and it brings up a targeting reticle, and then you can bring your troops into cover. I mean, they're doing what they can to add tactical elements to a first-person shooter. They're making a first-person shooter. Get over it. For God's sake.
Well, I guess we won't be able to tell until it actually comes out.
I want to buy it I'm going to buy it just so I can support them. Just to support that developer, just to get back at everybody. Because I'm vengeful and a dick.
Well, I'm willing to hear. I'm willing to wait until what other people say, but I will go on the record by saying I would, in a heartbeat, buy the new XCOM if it was just a graphical upgrade of the original game. Right. At this point, I am on the fence. I am waiting to see.
Right. I think you know, as like I like Spoony, I like his vlogs. I think he jumped the gun a little. That's all.
And you can't blame him for being passionate.
No, I can't. Again, like I completely understand where he's coming from. However, I think when he made that, that's a game that was still like 2 years from release. That gives you a ton of time to add stuff, and he was complaining about graphics. Like he had his main complaint, which was that it was not like the original XCOM, and you know that he didn't really have much to say about that, and he kind of needed to pad the video out, so he just came up with basic complaints about graphics not being good. I was like, well, yeah, the game's 2 years from release. You know, of course.
Yeah, you kind of gotta expect that.
And that's immensely unfair. You can't, like, I wouldn't go to like a gaming convention now and be like, Halo 4 looks like crap. I was like, well, yeah, we still need a year to polish it to make sure it looks good. I mean, we're still in beta.
Or the other, not even to go into video games. It's like, let's say your parents tell you to clean your room, and your first step is to get everything out into the open so that you can sort everything. And they come in like 2 hours after you started, and it's like, you're grounded because your room looks messier now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect analogy. And that's what it's like. That's why I think if this had been more 6 months closer to like the release of the game, because actually I think now if they said something like that, or maybe in December, I'd say December, like if they start showing stuff in December for a game that's coming out in March, and if it still looks shaky in December, then maybe I'd say there's probably going to be issues graphically. But
it's just like people who got on my ass for complaining about the graphics in Duke Nukem Forever demo. It's like, no, this is the game. This is not a pre-release thing. This is what the game is actually going to fucking look like. This is a demo. Yeah.
Unless it's a beta, unless it is beta, you can absolutely complain about graphics in a demo. Do I think graphics are important? No. I've gone on record as saying that numerous times, that I really don't care about graphics. It's nice if they're good, but, you know, as long as they're not hurting my eyes, I'm fine with whatever you give me.
Right.
So, you know, and art design, that's kind of a tough one, because I think that was another thing that Spoony didn't like when he was talking about XCOM, is that he didn't like the art design. I think that's subjective, really. But, you know.
Well, now we're kind of just bashing on we're definitely bashing on a specific person as well as being off track.
I'm not bashing him. Like I said, I think putting the final thoughts on just that particular thing, I agree in that I would have liked to have also seen a re-release of the original XCOM on console, because I know a couple of RTSs that work. Command & Conquer 3 is good on console. Halo Wars works for what it's worth. I wouldn't mind seeing a console version of the original XCOM.
Well, XCOM isn't an RTS. It's a turn-based. It's a turn-based strategy, which is another thing that is very, very short. It's a very small market for turn-based strategies. I mean, name how many turn-based strategy games out there are. Advanced Wars.
Advanced Wars, and that's like on the DS.
And that's about it.
Oh, Valkyria Chronicles.
Valkyria Chronicles of the Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced series, also on the DS.
So I think the only console one is Valkyria Chronicles, because that's on the PS3.
And I guess the Civ series.
Yeah, Civilization.
And that's it. So turn-based strategy is a very untapped market. So if you were to release a game like this, it would be in a market that doesn't have much competition versus a first-person shooter. There is a first-person shooter coming out like every week.
Yeah.
There might not all be huge, like big budget titles like the Call of Duty or Gears of War or anything like that, but there's one coming out like every week.
Actually, yeah, you got Battlefield 3, Modern Warfare 3, and I guess you could kind of count Uncharted. It's a third-person shooter, but...
And Resistance just came out.
Resistance just came out, yeah. There's a lot of shooters out there. And there's gonna be more because they sell.
Well, we'll see about that, and I guess we'll see you on the next. I guess we'll see you next time on Gamers Without Borders.
Oh yeah, by the way, Borderlands, really good. Like
yeah, check out Borderlands. If you don't have Borderlands yet, go check it out.